Evolution. What is it? Does it exist? And is there proof of its existence? Freshman students
Zamzam Adem,
Pauline Bucu and
Duretti Kadir
are here to answer exactly those questions.
The theory of evolution by natural selection is the process by which organisms changes over time as a result of changes in heritable, physical, or behavioral traits. This type of change allows an organism to better adapt to its environment and will help it survive and have more offspring. Evolution by the natural selection is one of the best supported theories in the history of science. It is supported by evidence from a wide variety of scientific disciplines including paleontology, geology, genetics, and development biology.
Darwin's theory of evolution stated that species survive through a process called natural selection. By textbook definition, it is the process by which individuals that are better adapted to their environment survive and reproduce more successfully than less well-adapted individuals do. Natural selection is the survival of the fittest. Fittest being the measure of an individual's hereditary contribution to the next generation. This means organisms with better suited adaptations to their environment have a higher survival rate, making them to be the fittest of their group and continuing to reproduce their traits among their offspring. Darwin proposed the theory that natural selection was the mechanism for descent with modification, also known as evolution. Those who survived were successfully evolved and adapted. The species who didn't reproduce died.
The four main theories of Charles Darwin include overproduction, genetic variation, differential reproduction, and struggle to survive. Overproduction. This is when more offsprings can be produced than can survive to maturity. Genetic variation. Individuals have different traits within a population. Struggle to survive. Individuals must compete with each other in a struggle for existence. Darwin concluded that organisms with the best adaptations are most likely to survive and reproduce in what is called differential reproduction.
What better way to prove evolution exists than with a dog? The following video is a clip of my cousin's dog and is definitely not a video from the internet. It is debatable as to exactly how long ago dogs were originally domesticated. However, evolution is prevalent in the transition from the wolf to dog species. An ancient dog-like skull uncovered in the Siberian mountains suggested that the first dogs were domesticated around 33,000 years ago from gray wolves, making Siberian Huskies the first breed of dogs to derive from wolves. The Chukchi people were the first to breed Siberian Husky dogs.
The image of a fossil is a 33,000-year-old canine found in a Russian cave near human remains. This fossil was compared to wild wolves, modern wolves, domesticated dogs, and early dog-like canids that lived before 26,500 years. And the result was that the dog most closely resembled fully domesticated dogs from Greenland in size and shape.
Dogs most commonly descended from the gray wolf, or by its scientific name Canis lupus. Wolves belong to the family Canidae and are most closely related to domestic dogs, foxes, coyotes, dingoes, lycons, and jackals. Canis familiaris, a somewhat larger and more robust form of wolf, had evolved in North America earlier. A common ancestor between wolves and dogs was a prehistoric wolf that lived in Europe or Asia from somewhere between 9,000 to 34,000 years ago.
Let's get a closer look at doggy DNA. In a genetic mapping consisting of dogs, wolves, jackals, and feral African village dogs, scientists mapped over 120,000 spots on each dog's DNA. And by looking at the nucleobases, scientists can determine where differences arise in the doggy DNA. When the DNA of one dog breed has more bases in common with the DNA of another dog breed, it means they are more closely related, just like you and your family have more bases in common than you and a stranger. Short segments of genes from a distant dog relative, the gray wolf, were found in every sample of dogs' genetic information. However, the nucleotides that make dogs look different were only found in a few areas of DNA. These reflect the areas that have changed in the centuries since people started breeding dogs for different traits, creating many different breeds of dogs in the process.
Real quick, let's go over what vestigial structure, homologous structure, and analogous structure are. A vestigial structure is an organ or body part of a species that has lost its function over time. The gray wolf's vestigial structure is the dew claws, the fifth toe on the hind legs. The dew claws' original function was to help the wolves climb trees, but over time the wolves had to become fast runners to hunt, making the fifth claw useless. Over time, the toe moved up too far up to the leg to be used any longer. Now dogs are fast runners and can't climb trees. Homologous structure is an anatomical structure that occurs in species that is originated by heredity from a structure in the most common ancestor of the species. There are many animals that share similar four-limbed structures, which includes dogs, birds, humans, and whales. They function differently and look different on the outside, but they're similar. This is known to be an evolutionary way that animals are related. Analogous are structures that have closely related functions but don't come from the same ancestor. In dogs and wolves, some analogous traits would be that dogs are trainable but wolves can only be trained to a certain extent. Dogs and wolves have similar teeth, but wolves use them to fight and to prey and can crush bones with them. While dogs have lost these abilities, meanwhile they eat store-bought dog food.
Now, what led to the adaptations? Well, environment impacts that led to dog adaptations was how humans began to domesticate dogs many years ago, and later evolved to adapt to their own environments.
Dogs and wolves have comparable traits when it comes to adaptations. Provided are just a few of their modern versus ancestral adaptations. Similar adaptations include communication, since both animals use vocal communication to express needs, convey warning, invite another animal or human to play, and to talk to fellow pack members. Second is behavioral things such as putting their ears back to show submission. Differences in adaptations include eye color and coat color. With eye color, dogs have eyes that range in color from blue to brown. Wolves always have eyes that are shades of yellow or amber, but never brown. Dog coats can be all kinds of colors, but wolf coats are generally white, black, gray, or brown because they depend on camouflage for survival.
There are many health problems in dogs caused by selective breeding or artificial selection, which is the selective breeding of organisms, usually by humans, for specific desirable characteristics. The less wolf-like the dog is in appearance, the more health problems the dog will have, since these traits will put a lot of dogs at disadvantage if they were to be released into the wild.
Irresponsible breeding can make dogs more vulnerable to defects since natural selection is kept out of the breeding process, and the purpose of natural selection is to get rid of organisms with traits unsuitable to the environment, but breeding allows those traits to be passed on. To summarize, Darwin's theory of natural selection being the mechanism used to greatly influence descent with modification, leading into evolution. It is seen through the ancestry of dogs that over time, environmental factors weave out traits that are unsuitable to fit the environment. This is called natural selection. Wolves either adapt or die in order to survive in the environment, developing habits influenced by the taming of humans to become what we now know as a man's best friend. Thus, in conclusion, proving that evolution really does exist. Thank you for watching, and we hope that this video was informative and enjoyable.